You're listening to the Mind Your Business podcast, episode number 69. Today, we're sharing with you the 13 habits for manifesting more money. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and I've built a 7-figure internet business that offers the financial freedom to do what I want when I want. And I'm the first to say that hard work and hustle are not essential ingredients for your success. So, how do you build a thriving business from the inside out? This is the Mind Your Business podcast, featuring myself and co-host Phoebe Mroczek. All right, well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mind Your Business podcast. This is the show. This is it. I'm your host, James Wedmore.
And I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
And you're here. You're listening. We really appreciate it. So welcome and thank you for joining us. Today, we are going to be talking about some of the infamous M word, the manifesting word. It's the beginning of the year, or it's almost the beginning of a whole new year. And we thought this would be a good time to start talking about manifesting more money, more importantly, more abundance into your life. So we'll be getting into that today, won't we?
We will. And I thought it was a good topic to kind of start the year out. Everyone's setting their revenue targets and trying to get more structure in place. And so this just kind of fuses really well with the idea of going into the new year filled with abundance.
Speaking of filled with abundance, guess what I just got?
What did you just get?
I just bought a brand new Tesla Model S.
Where does your Santa come from? Because my Santa definitely didn't bring me a Tesla. That's amazing.
I got Santa's electric sleigh. That's what I did.
Awesome.
And, I wanted to talk about this for a moment because this was totally, I'm going to say it was a very spontaneous purchase, but there's a very interesting backstory, and it really has a theme of synchronicity that is so apropos for this episode and this topic. So I want to talk about this. So literally, I got it yesterday. Well, I placed a down payment. It's a, spec to build, takes like 3 months. So I now have to play this patient waiting game. That's another part of what we'll be talking about today, the power of patience. So the short version of this story that I got to share is that I've wanted this car for a long time, since before they were available to the public. I wanted one. And it's actually how my wife and I met. We met at a yoga retreat, and one of the things you do on a yoga retreat is a vision board. And there's this girl on the other side of the room who is cutting out a magazine. We're all cutting out magazines, and she goes, "Oh, look, a Tesla. I'm putting this on my vision board." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And really caught her attention because earlier that day, on the way up to the yoga retreat, I had actually just gotten off the phone with my bank and was given a very small loan amount for the purchase of this car. You see, when they first came out, Tesla did not have their own financing or leasing programs, so you had to go to your bank. And my bank was giving me a lot of trouble because they wouldn't give me a business loan, only a personal loan. And I was not giving myself much of a salary back then. And so I think they only gave me like a $20,000 loan for the car. It's like a $80,000+ car when it's all said and done. And I'm like, I'm not going to spend $60,000 cash to get this thing. So it was actually at that weekend where I met Chelsea, my wife, where, I also decided, it's not worth it. And I just moved on and cared about my life, and didn't think much else after it. Here's what did happen. Like 2 days before Christmas, our good friends, our neighbors, who I've actually mentioned about, he's actually a member of the Inner Circle, Mel Abraham, took us out to dinner. And they said, "Oh, we'll drive, because I can take you in our brand new Tesla that we got." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, of course." So I'm sitting in the back of this car, and I'm like, this is the first time I've ever been in one. Chelsea and I are kind of looking at each other with that look, like, gosh, this is really nice. And I want one. So he proceeds to tell me and this is his second Tesla already. So he proceeds to tell me everything about why he loves this car. I'm just digging it. I'm like, okay, so what's the catch, right? And so that was that. The next day, the very next day, we go Christmas shopping, and we end up actually at one of those mystic woo-woo spiritual crystal shops. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Definitely do.
Yeah. And we happen to apparently be just talking to the owner of the store. And within a minute of talking to him, I have no idea how this happens, but he gets on the topic of his brand new Tesla that he's had for a month and how much he loves it. And Chelsea and I are just looking at each other. We're like, we just rode in one last night. This is nuts. And he basically sat there and sold us on the car. He's like, I don't care if you don't buy anything here today, but you need to get this car. You need this car. And I'm like, okay. So as soon as we left that store, which we got some great crystals, by the way, another episode, we headed to the mall to do the rest of our Christmas shop. And we had an agenda. We're like, okay, I got to get for my mom. I got to get for my sister. So we're on a very specific plan. Like, there's nothing in our head about anything. 5 minutes into the mall, if that, like we walk in and there's the Tesla store. We're like, oh my gosh. All right. We got to go in there. 3 steps into the store. And I hear this, James Wedmore, is that you? And someone who works there recognized me because they are a longtime subscriber and customer of mine. And they work in the store. They just started working there a week ago.
You're like, take my credit card.
So this is a shout out to Judy. Judy, if you listen to the podcast, thank you for listening. And so I just told Judy everything that had just happened and like why I'm here. And she's like, yeah, you got to get one. She's like, let me, connect you with our sales rep. And it was like Christmas. It was either the 23rd or the 24th. So we said, okay, we're going to schedule something for the day after, which was the 26th. We come back, we do a test drive. We're like, what's the catch? Like, what is there not here? What am I missing? Like, everything's just a hell yes for me. And so we did it. It was very easy, very fun, very just great experience all around. We go home and Chelsea turns on the TV. And the show that is playing, I kid you not, the show that she turns on, I don't know what the show was, I couldn't tell you. They're driving a Tesla, talking about the Tesla in the show. And they were talking about one of the things that we'd actually had this very same conversation in the test drive with. Like they have a toggle mode called ludicrous speed. And I'm like, are you kidding? This is a Spaceballs reference, right? I'm like, are you kidding me that Tesla put in a ludicrous speed mode? This is amazing. We get home, we turn on the show and they're like, oh no, someone left it on ludicrous speed. That means we're out of battery and blah, 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 blah. I'm just staring at the TV like, are you kidding me right now? This is unbelievable. So, long drawn out story, I know, but this is for me personally, how I choose to interpret these kind of experiences is this very magic, synchronistic events. It's happened very quickly in a short amount of time. It was like as soon as the desire kind of like, oh, I kind of want this. All of a sudden, that's all I kept seeing. And all the signs were kind of just pointing like, well, here it is if you want it. And I have a lot of these, and I think I should be sharing more of them on the show. I don't know. I find that fascinating. What do you think? I
love this. This is always what happens to me. And I think when you start to like think about something or you start having a conversation, the more and more it pops up. I'm like, yes, I will take that. So this is awesome. I'm so pumped for you. Yeah. So it's exciting, but I'm in an interesting place because I really want to share with you guys like a lot of takeaways with this. Like if this whole manifesting thing could be this skill that you develop as a skill, like mastering anything. Let's master manifesting because we're all manifesting. Like that's the other thing. We're already doing it. Look around at your life, what you have, the experiences, the results, the people. Like, part of this podcast is about owning that and taking responsibility for your experience of what you experience in the world. That you're manifesting that on some level. And that is controversial to some people, but I think we kind of dive in deeper in other episodes. So you're already doing it. How can we hone and refine it? And why this is just such a beautiful story to me, it's beautiful to offer a lesson, is that this is the second time I've tried manifesting the car. The first time I remember it specifically like trying to do it for like a month. Like I was visualizing, I was like saying these affirmations to myself, and like I was almost like gritting my teeth, like, come on, you can do it. You know what I mean? And I was like, in short, I was forcing it. And what ended up happening? I had an experience of it just not going the way I wanted it to. And I knew enough to say, okay, I'm forcing this. It's not feeling right. Let it go. And then this time around, I didn't really think much about it. I didn't really care. And this is what we call detachment. I still do not care if I don't get this car. It's like when you're at lunch and someone's like, do you want the pizza or the burger? And you're like, I really don't. I mean, I'll take either one.
And it's like, what if the things that you want, you could have the same level or attitude as that? And some people say, look, that doesn't make sense because then there's no desire there. And it's like, the desire helps you to identify what you truly want. But to truly get it, you have to act as if you already have it. And if you already have it, you're not going around talking about how you don't have it. And so for me, as I go through those experiences, sitting in the back of the car and hearing somebody else tell their story, my attention never went to like, oh, why can't I do this? And oh, I wish I could do this. And what's wrong with me? This guy sucks. Why is he rubbing this in my face that he has one and I don't? It was just like, it was just all positive experience. It was all light. It was a real sense of detachment. And even Chelsea, like on the drive home, like, are you really excited? I'm like, sure, I am. Like, yes. And I'm also like, you know, it is what it is. And it sounds really weird. I don't know how else to explain it. But where it leads us into this conversation today, which is going to sound very contradictory, is that I think one thing we want to encourage is to try not and manifest money. I think for a few reasons. Not that money is the root of all evil. We'll talk about that, of course, today. But the money is this esoteric, intangible thing. It's not even backed by anything. It's just a note that doesn't mean anything except what we decide to make it mean every single day as we get up, which is kind of crazy. So instead, rather look at, well, what would you do with the money? If you had this money, how would you spend it? What type of experiences would you want to create for yourself, your family, your business? What type of things would you like? What kind of house and car? You know, those things. And listen, if anyone wants to say like, oh, how materialistic, like, I don't really care. Like, to me, life is about experiencing great adventures with great people. And money doesn't make you happy and things don't make you happy. But if I'm on a yacht with my best friends going down a river, yeah, I'm probably going to be pretty happy in that moment. So I'm all about that. And if you are, then I just want to share with you, we both want to share with you some of the things that we think have worked and have a conversation that takes you a little deeper down the woo-woo rabbit hole, as we like to say. But here's another piece to add before we get into these 13 habits, is that I used to think, this was a belief I had, that having more money would solve my problems, right? Every sentence started with, well, if I had more money, if there was more in the bank account, if I had enough of a cushion, or, you know, I'd say words like that, enough buffer or cushion or padding, then this would be okay. Then I wouldn't have to worry about that and blah, blah, blah. And if that feels like you, I want you to soften that a bit. Because ultimately, where all this manifesting thing comes down to is right now, if you're doing the, if I have this, then I'll feel that, we're actually doing it backwards. We're all doing it backwards. We're saying, once I have $100,000, I'll feel successful. I'll feel secure. I'll feel this. And it's the be, do, have model, not the have, do, be, right? So it's when you identify why you want these things, you realize that at the core, it's a desire to feel better or have a better feeling experience than you have right now. Ultimately, it'll make me have more fun. It'll make me happier. It'll make me feel more stability and certainty and safety in my life. And that when you realize that that's the case, as hard as it may seem, or as hard as it may be to believe, you can choose to have those feelings, that experience now. And it's in having that feeling that you begin to unlock the thing that you're yearning for. Where we get tripped up is when we think that the having of something will then say something about us or will facilitate us feeling a certain way. And that's hashtag backwards. Does that make sense?
It does. And actually, I have a good example of this kind of from the last couple of days when I was writing out all of my goals for 2017 and how I wanted to feel and what the essence of how I wanted to feel was. And a lot of it was like safety, security, connected. And when I looked at those three in particular, I started to realize that it wasn't, you know, the safety and security maybe didn't look the same. Like there were a lot of different interpretations of that. And so what I came up with was maybe it wasn't the financial security and safety that I was looking for, but maybe just feeling safe and secure in my own house. And so I was like, well, what if I kind of took that and ran with that. And so what I did was, and my mom had asked me, she's like, what do you want for Christmas? And what would you do if, we got in this whole conversation, what would you do if you had $500 to spend right now? And I was like, you know what? I would invest in my home and make me feel safe and secure and connected, because if I have a nice patio and if I invest in the patio furniture, I feel connected because now my friends can come over. So instead of taking it and maybe stressing out about what products I'm going to create next year, I was like, well, no, why don't I really create an experience for myself every day where now I come home and I have put stuff on the walls finally a year later, a nice Christmas tree up. I have candles everywhere and my patio looks amazing. And it just took a little bit, not even buying too much, but just restructuring a couple things, buying some things, putting them on the wall. And then I had a beautiful Christmas dinner where all my friends came over. And so I was able to create that environment where, the safety, the security, and the connection could really thrive in my apartment, as opposed to stressing out about products and services and what I'm going to do in the new year.
And that's so beautiful, and it's so simple, because I think what happens when it's very easy to fall into is to say, okay, well, I need all these things, which means I need all this money and I can't afford that and blah, 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 blah. And instead we just say like, well, wait a second. Like, what if I could start feeling that now? What if I could use what I got now and then invite more of that into my life? And it doesn't have anything to do with money. So we'll talk about that. So that's the kind of like contradictory, paradoxical conversation that we're having here, is that the topic for today is habits for manifesting more money. And we're ultimately saying, like, let go of the money for a second, But even with that saying, we're going to share with you some really cool things to just ultimately invite more abundance into your life and give you the true experience of you having a say in what is showing up in your life, manifesting. And when you have that as your own experience, you are going to unlock the magic. It's something that you can't lock back up. The quicker I can get one listener, just one listener here, to have a true experience of their own where they can say, wait a second, I did that. That's not being done to me. That's not the world imposing its will on little victim me, that I am creating that. I am choosing that. I am manifesting that. Well, the quicker we can do that, the quicker we can look at what else is possible. And so we're going to throw everything at you from every which way. This is an old term we use called stacking the deck. I mean, we're just every week, and our episodes run long for a reason. If every week I can just bombard you with every different way that we can have the same conversation, you're going to have no other option but to do this. Does that sound good?
All right. Well, let's get into it. So now we have the 13 habits for manifesting more money.
Okay, so we have 13 for you, lucky number 13, and I want you to listen for 2 to 3 of these that you can be like, hey, I can do this today. I can do this while I'm on this friggin' podcast, right? And don't try and take all of them on, because if you do, what's going to happen? You're going to get overwhelmed. You're not going to do any of them. So you look for the ones that say, okay, I can do this. All right, James. All right, Phoebe. I'll listen to your crazy talk, and I'll try one of these, okay? So here's manifesting habit number 1. And this is always the best place to start, gratitude. We want you to look for the opportunity to create and experience a profound, overwhelming sense of gratitude in your life. And I've talked about this previously on episodes where growing up, you'd like stand up in class, like share something you're grateful for. And you're like, always pressure that you got to say there, I'm grateful for my family. And you move on. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about playing with this, having a conversation in your mind to the point where you really feel overwhelmed and consumed by this emotion of gratitude. Gratitude is what unlocks it all. It is the attraction vibration. And so this is key. And so if we're talking about attracting more money, then we want to be grateful for the money we already have. The challenge is that some people look to their bank accounts and say, how can I be grateful for the money I have? I don't like looking at that number, right? And so what we have to do is say, okay, let's soften it a little bit because, first and foremost, if you look in your bank account right now, that is the past, right? And we then look at that number and say, this is all I have, and we take what we've created in the past and bring it into our present and create new results from into the future, which then just keep us in this vicious cycle, keeping us stuck. So what I would offer for you, since we're speaking mostly to entrepreneurs and business owners, is to look instead at the revenue that you've generated. Look back at your previous year of total revenue. Look back at your last launch or promotion or your sale or anything that shows revenue. Now, why would I do this? It's because the moment you can realize for a second, like, I created money, that can be huge. Like when we just stop and get really present to say, wait a second, someone over in Idaho just found me on the internet, pulled out their credit card, typed it in, and pressed submit, and sent me money. Like, you created that. And it's different than looking at the bank account because we got to pay taxes, we got business expenses. You also made all the purchases to the things that you needed in your life, like food and shelter and all those, payments that we pay, and some of the things that you wanted in your life. So when you look to your bank account, you're looking at what's left over, not the total number of what you were able to create. And that's a great place to start. So, manifesting habit number 1 is consume yourself. Become overwhelmed by a feeling of gratitude by looking at the revenue you've created, whether it's over an entire year, the last month, just a single sale. It doesn't matter how big or small. It's the acknowledgement that you did that. Manifesting habit number 2 is to write down or identify all the negative beliefs that you spot in regards to money. Now, this is huge, and we'll have another episode on this because it could become its own episode, but what's keeping us from what we want, okay, so if you actually are having desires like, I wish I had more money or blah, 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 there's the desires there, but the result is not. It's coming from, this discordance is coming from a belief that's getting in the way of that. The challenge is that these beliefs are subconscious. They don't show up as beliefs. They show up as truths. And sometimes it's really hard. So the first thing I want to do is just offer some hints at some of the beliefs that people have that we've developed from a very young age, and then we carry with us as truth. Things like, life is difficult. Okay, my dad always has this one. He would tell me this from a young age. I think he thought he was joking, but he didn't realize that it really landed as truth for me. He would say, James, life is tough and then you die. I think he thought he was being like really profound and funny. But like as a little kid, I was like, nope. This is really scary. So life is difficult. Life is tough. The real world out there is a harsh place. What do you think of when you think of those things? You think, well, crap, I gotta survive. I gotta get mine. This puts you into a lack mindset. But you don't go around saying, I have a lack mindset. Some people do. Good for you. But most people just say that's the way it is. Just like this, people don't go around and saying like, if you look up, you see the sky is blue. You don't go like, I have a blue sky mindset. You just say the sky is blue. So people are walking around saying, yeah, life's difficult. And then you try and tell them, no, it's beautiful and magical. They say, screw you. Look at all the things that have happened in my life. Well, those things are just reaffirming a belief that you already have. What if we said, now this is going to hurt, but what if we said, the reason you have all this evidence of how life is difficult is because you had a belief that life is difficult. So when you create a belief like that, especially from a very early age, you can't see anything but that. So instead, we just accrue more and more evidence and proof that we're right, because that's where ego comes in, is the ego's always got to be right. So we can't possibly see evidence to the contrary. In fact, if anyone is on this call kind of starting to say, screw you, James, you don't know me, well, say hi to your ego, because a belief is being threatened. So it's got to make me wrong versus you being wrong. Now, I'm not talking about anybody being right or wrong, but that's what the ego does, right? So there's nothing right or wrong about saying life is difficult. And that's really important. All that I want to say is that if we hold on to that belief as truth, the truth, then it doesn't allow for more money to come in easily, does it? Money can come in, but it'll have to be hard. So we're really looking at what are the truths, the beliefs that we've created as truths that are going to make this journey harder for us. That's one of them. Another one, which is really related to this, is you have to work hard for money. That was one I carried on for a long time. I love to challenge myself with that and continue to find ways to make money easier, to generate revenue easier. Money is the root of all evil. Classic.
Yeah, I used to have one, when I make money, someone else suffers. That was a belief that I had. And so, of course, I'm never going to make any money if I don't want to hurt anybody else.
Right. Unless you're a jerk and you like people to suffer. There might be people out there that have that belief, but they're like, I love when people suffer, so let's go make some money. But yeah, for most people, people like you, Phoebe, who are nice, kind people, that's not going to do very well. So the habit here is to become hyper aware and vigilant. And one way you can start to do that is to look at your complaints and breakdowns. When you get upset in the realm of discussing money, you could ask yourself, what belief would I have to have in order for this to be an upset? So like if you got really frustrated because you had to spend money on something, you could say, what belief would have me get upset about this? Now, most people won't do this. Most people do not take the time to do this because this is called like super vigilant, hyper aware, meta mind mining. You're mind mining for beliefs. And that takes a lot because there is that part called the ego that does not want you to change those beliefs. Because if it gets found out that it's wrong, it gets threatened. It's threatened. So that's huge if you guys want to take that on. But even if you just write them down, we can start to get present to them. The acknowledgement and awareness that it's a belief and not a truth is power in and of itself. Because if it's a belief, that means there are other beliefs. For example, could life be easy for some? Is life as difficult a universal truth for everybody on the planet? No. Do some people have more difficult lives than others? Absolutely. Absolutely. Does everyone have to work hard for money? Some people do. Does everyone? No, so it's not a universal truth. Is money the root of all evil? Does everyone that have money, are they evil? No, there are evil people that have money. Or, I don't necessarily say I want to go around saying people are evil, but there are people that have done evil things and they have a lot of money. Are those cause and effect? Does one create the other? I don't know. But is it universal? And so you start to write down these beliefs and just play around and question them. So that's manifesting habit number 2. Let's move on to habit number 3. Now that we've investigated your limiting beliefs, let's seek out abundance everywhere. So here's what I mean by this. This is really fun. I've done this for a long time. What is abundance? Abundance to me means like more than enough, more than you'll ever need. A never-ending, it's as similar to the word as infinite, right? There's more than enough. You're never taking away when you have some, right? And so I like to look at examples in nature and in life where I see abundance. It's really easy for me because I live at the beach, so I can look at the sand and be like, there's a lot of grains of sand. You look at the water, and this is always a great analogy I've heard many times, right? You look out into the ocean. There's a lot of water. There really is a lot of water on this planet. And if you got really present to that, like it's kind of trippy. When we're talking about the 100,000 I want to make or the million, you're talking about taking a thimble of water out of the ocean. That's the level of abundance we're talking about. So the practice here is to find it everywhere. Even like you're in your garage and you see a box of nails. There's an abundance of nails right there. And this box is just one of thousands of boxes of nails. It's bizarre, and you might think this is trivial. But the point is if we have beliefs that we live in a world of lack, which is the only thing that, by the way, is keeping you from what you want, FYI, is that somewhere there is a belief that has shown up as the truth for you. It's a truth. It's not the truth. And it's a lack-based belief. And one way to combat that is to find evidence of abundance, which is the antithesis of lack everywhere you go. Everywhere you go. I mean, it's all around us. The air we breathe, the water, nature. Just look at grass. I mean, the blades of grass, and you will see it.
Now, manifesting tip or habit number 4 is something that is very timely for me because I love affirmations. I have them all over my mirror, and I've actually just redone a lot of mine for the coming year. So making sure that for me personally, it helps when I put them on little different color Post-it notes over my mirror as I'm like putting on my makeup or getting ready in the morning. I just look at them and I read them aloud, and I find it to be really helpful. So a couple that I find to be really helpful. There's one that's all my money is working for me to increase my abundance, joy, and aliveness. Then there's another one that is I choose to live an abundant life. And really, like, I do this thing where I just like look at myself in the mirror, like right in the eyes, and I just really say it as though I'm telling a friend or as though I'm saying it as a truth. And some of the other ones that I've been saying is money flows to me in expected and unexpected ways. That's a good one. And then one that I just put on a bright yellow Post-it note was I've got the Midas touch. Everything I touch turns to gold. And I love that because I feel like maybe I read a book when I was little or something talking about the Midas touch, but I can just really visualize it. And so making it as tactile as possible really helps to, get those affirmations and to start, I guess, rewiring your brain and changing those thought patterns. So now manifesting habit number 5 is to clean out your wallet. And this is something that I do normally once a year. There was an exercise I did at an event where we had to pass our wallet around the table. And it was so embarrassing because I realized how much it was so heavy. I had so much change. And it was like an old tattered wallet. And I was like, oh my gosh, everyone else there were a couple people that had really beautiful wallets. And I was like, this is an amazing container for all your money. And you must look at this in your purse and feel amazing. And that is something that I was not feeling at the time. So sometimes I'll use the new year, or if I'm out shopping and I see a really nice wallet that makes me feel affluent or luxurious or whatever my word is that I want to feel, then I'll get a wallet and I'll clean it out. And I'll make sure, even if I want to have change in there, I'll keep some quarters in there, but I'll reorganize my money so that the first thing I see is my highest dollar bill.
I think a way to stack the deck here, as we like to say, which I love doing, and this is such a simple, easy thing to do, is to fill it with a few $100 bills, like at least $300 bills. And every time you pull out that wallet, to see that money is just a reminder of the abundance in your life.
And you can also leave yourself a little note. I saw that somewhere. I actually don't do this, but I saw it somewhere where somebody put a little Post-it note. And so every time they open their wallet, it said something like you are abundant or something like that, just as a reminder as you're about to take money out and, give it out and the energy of the money kind of flow from your wallet.
I like that.
Awesome. So now manifesting habit number 6 is to write out your financial goals somewhere. And this is something, with my affirmations that I write out, I write it in lipstick on my mirror every day. So I see it, and it's just a reminder, just something that will seep in and really hold true for me for the rest of the year. Or you can do it every quarter or whatever your financial goals are. But it's really important to have that goal written out somewhere obvious that you'll see it every day.
And one of the things that we do, just to, again, show you examples of how we stack the deck, is we'll do episodes on this later, but I have a huge affinity for crystals. So we do something called a crystal grid, which is like putting a series of crystals together to set a very specific, powerful intention. And so we'll write out the financial goal or whatever the thing is that we want to manifest. We'll integrate it into the crystal grid. And then to stack that, we put the grid in the abundance quadrant, thanks to feng shui, which we have an entire episode on feng shui, in the abundance quadrant of our home, right? And so the abundance quadrant is in the far back left-hand corner if you're standing at your front door looking into your home. And you can always do a quick Google search for feng shui baguas to see where to do that. All right, manifesting habit number 7 is an important one. It's a doozy, and this is to get complete with any outstanding debts immediately. This on 2 fronts. First of all, there may be people who owe you money. Now, if they're overdue and it's bugging you, if it's hooking you, right? If it's a total breakdown every time you think about it, like right now, when I say, who owes you money, and it upsets you, you've got to take an action in the next 24 hours or less. Number one, option one, is to be in communication with this person that owes you money to get that money back, to get it settled, or drop it. Let it go. Okay? Now, obviously, there's debts that like, oh, yeah, no, he's not going to pay me back for another 6 months. That's fine. That doesn't bother you. That's like, okay, yeah, he'll pay me back then. Okay? Now, the other side of the coin, of course, is when you owe somebody else money. And a secret little sense of guilt is kind of creeping in every once in a while. And here's this whole conversation about abundance, and you want abundance, but you're not willing to pay a person back who put faith in you that you would. I'm not saying this is anybody here listening, but if it were, I would be in communication with that person to do something about it to clean that up. Does this make sense?
It does. And I think, if you can't for some reason pay them back immediately, it's important, for me, what I'll do is I'll set a reminder on my phone, and, that comes my rent and all these things that I need to pay. But it's just knowing that there's something in place, there's a structure in place for you to repay them. So if you can't pay it tomorrow, today, whatever, that's okay. But then that allows it just to leave your mind, because it occupies so much space when you're like, oh, James, even when you were just saying, does somebody owe you money? I'm like, right. That is occupying space in the background. And just as you owing somebody else money, it's the same thing. So just make sure that you put structures in place, or just get rid of it entirely so you can drop it and release that energy. Yeah,
absolutely. Because I'm not saying go pay them back. That doesn't necessarily answer, because you may not be able to. But like Phoebe's saying, be in communication, acknowledge, hey, I know you asked for this money back a month ago, and I'm sorry I didn't do it. I'd like to pay you back. Right now, funds are tight. Can I set up a payment plan? Can I get a further deadline? Can I pay you by this day? Something so that you and that other individual are now complete. You're now cool with each other, right? I think that's so, so important. Guys, you got to tie up these loose ends. Okay, look around and say, is there anything that people owe me? All right, people, right? And so I just can't stress that enough. That is a doozy. Okay, let's move on to manifesting habit number 8, which is a fun little visualization. I learned this somewhere. Go ahead and try it on. You could try it on while you're listening to literally just imagine or visualize gold sprinkling down on you, almost as if you have this tiny rain cloud of gold sprinkling down on you as you walk, anytime you walk, right? Especially if you like to go for walks like I do, to just try that out. And I actually like to imagine that there's several gold bars, almost like cheese graters, like being rubbed together, and it's causing, the gold dust to fall off and onto me. It's bizarre. It's odd, but don't worry. No one has to know that you're doing it. You just keep it to yourself. Okay.
I love that. I do something similar, but it's a visualization I do in the mornings. Not every morning, but occasionally. And I'll just sit up in bed when I'm doing my visualizations, and I picture my roof opening up and just money dumping down on me. And it's filling, it comes in my sliding door in my living room, and then it falls down on me in my bedroom. And I just picture actual dollar bills, $100 bills flying in through my roof. It's a pretty great one.
I love it. I love it. Let's take a look at manifesting habit number 9. Now, this is an exercise of imagining your money flowing outwards. And we shared this in a previous podcast. Don't ask me which episode. So some people have heard it, but I'll recreate it here for you today, a very simplified version. The goal is simple. Sometimes, and for me especially, I used to have this experience, that uncomfortable, painful experience of paying for something. When you hand over your credit card, when you let go of your money, you swipe the card, whatever it is, if that is at all an uncomfortable experience for you, whether it's a $10 purchase or a $1,000 purchase, we need to do some work around it. And this exercise is so powerful for that. Basically, all you need to do is, as you're spending that money, you imagine where that money is going. That's it. You imagine the flow. Let's say you bought lunch for a friend and it's $25. You imagine where that $25 is going and how that will impact others. It's going to help pay the tip for your waitress. It's going to help pay the staff that cooked your food. It's going to help pay the rent for the place that you just, ate lunch at. It helps pay for the food. Portion goes here, a portion goes there. You know what I mean? And then, okay, well, if we look at like, okay, it helped pay the wages of all the people that worked there. Well, what are they going to use that money for? They could use that for, their meals and their housing and other costs and expenses they have. And the more you do this, I kid you not, the more empowering of a relationship you will have with spending money. Now, why do we need an empowering relationship with spending money? Well, it's not that we need that. It's that we don't want to have a disempowering experience of anything, right? You don't want to be spending money because you're buying lunch today because you got to eat, and you're all beating yourself up and freaking out about it, okay? So I like to, and we talked about this on another episode, I like to look at money in abundance is like this river, and like, what kind of river do you want? Do you want a river that's like really small, like a little creek, and it's got a dam and it's all clogged up and dirty and yucky? Or do you want like Niagara Falls? Now, Niagara Falls works because there's a lot coming in and a lot coming out. It's kind of bizarre. It's not the way people think of it. People think like Scrooge McDuck, like I want the big vault where I can just get it bigger and bigger and bigger. And I like to say I want it to be like Niagara Falls. The power that's created from Niagara Falls is from this intake and outtake. And so when I do choose to spend money, because it's your conscious choice, when you do choose to spend money, you can choose to do it from an empowering place or disempowering place. So that exercise, that visualization will help. Try it out. Okay, let's move on really quickly to manifesting habit number 10. And this is as simple as to say donate. To give away, and it could be donate money, time, or things that no longer serve you in your life anymore. And I have to share my most recent example, and I could talk for so long on this, but I just can't stress this enough. So it's the holidays as we record this, and last week we did another random acts of kindness. I said on one of the previous podcasts I was going to do this. Me and my good buddy Brandon Lucero went to Toys R Us and just started handing out gift cards and helping to pay for people's Christmases, for their kids. And it was just such an incredible experience. And, people were in tears. One couple, like, they went in to Toys R Us and we couldn't find them for like 30, 40 minutes. I was like, man, what are they getting in there? We gave them $200. And sure enough, they're buying a big Power Wheels for their 4-year-old son. And they just said, like, he's been wanting this for so long. And I made the decision that I wasn't going to get it because I couldn't afford it. And I said, but with this money, I get to get him that. That just makes me so happy. Like, I have a huge affinity for children and toys. Like, when I was growing up, Phoebe, I wanted to be a toy maker because I love toys. Like, I love the inspiration, the imagination, the creativity that a great toy can evoke. And so, like, I grew up with toys, and, I want other kids to have that experience as well. So when I had that experience, we could only be there for like an hour because Brandon had to go back to LA. And I was like, oh, I want to do more. Like, it's not enough. Like, how do I do more? Like, there was just such a initial experience of like, I want to do more. And I could also feel with that experience was this like feeling of abundance that almost as if like, and Stu McLaren talks about this, the more money I create, the more money I make, the more I can give away. Mm-hmm. That's a conversation in the realm of abundance right there. So that's something for people to take on.
Perfect. And manifesting habit number 11 is to save your spare change. And this is something I have a beautiful crystal vase in my apartment that I have put all this ribbon on because I used to, when I would be like cleaning up, my couch or just tidying up, I would find spare change and it just like wouldn't mean anything to me. So I'd like throw pennies away, like dirty pennies or nickels or just, small change. And I realized that the message that I'm sending out there is like, money doesn't matter to me. It's not really important to me. And so I decided to change that. And so now I have the crystal vase with all this ribbon on it. And anytime I find money on the street, in my house, in my purse, I just like go and I kind of make a process of it to like go and dump it in there. And it makes me really happy. And it just, is putting out this notion that money is important to me. And anytime I find money on the street or anything, I always like get really excited. I always bend down and like pick it up and I'm like, more of this, please. I get really excited and everyone looks at me like I'm nuts, but I have that. And then also to put money in unusual places. So James, I actually got this because I had borrowed this book from you called Creating Money.
Yes.
And as I was reading it, if you remember, a $10 bill fell out of the book and I was like, oh my God, it's working. And I like sent you a text with the picture on it. And I was like, what a great message that is. I don't know if you intentionally did that or you did that for yourself, but
I can't remember. I don't know how that money got in there.
It was awesome. And maybe I just manifested it really quickly as I was reading it. But it was just such a cool moment. And now, I had a library book, actually, that Danielle Laporte Desire Map. I put like a couple bucks in there and just to kind of stash it in little places that I'm going to find it and it's going to make me excited. So I'll put some in, different purse pockets and just places that either I'm going to see it and receive it and get excited or someone else is going to.
I mean, I can't stress enough, like, how much I love the idea of and the practice of finding spare change on the street and taking a moment to bend over and pick it up and just acknowledging, like, hey, money flows to me easily. Instead of going, oh, it's just a penny. No, it's not. It's driftwood. It's evidence that more is coming.
Now, step number 12 or habit number 12 is to really just being open to different possibilities of money coming into you or different ways that money can come into you. And so we talked about some affirmations that money flows to me in expected and unexpected ways. And there's so many ways that you can make money. So I think that especially when we start planning our year, our quarters, our launches, whatever, we assume that it's going to look a certain way. And that's not necessarily the way that it's going to show up. So an exercise that I have is I'll write in my journal, I'll label it 1 to 20 or 1 to 30, 1 to 50, whatever it is. And I just write out all the ways this year or this coming year or this quarter that money could flow to me. Whether that's maybe I'll get some inheritance. Maybe I could find, $500 on the street, or maybe someone hands me money. But just being open to that is really important and showing the universe that you're open and willing and ready to receive more money. And I think that kind of goes into the finding money on the street, right? It's like you could find money on the street, but showing and just being appreciative and open, ready, and willing to receive is really important.
Yeah. And this concept of like a radar screen is such a great analogy that when you have a goal, like a financial number or something, our mind would then immediately go like, okay, what are all the ways in which I could do this? Like what Phoebe's talking about. And we really want to encourage you here. I think what Phoebe's really saying is to expand that radar screen, right? Instead of a 3-inch radius or something, imagine what it would look like a 10-inch or a 20-inch or a 50-inch radius where, you don't even know all the possibilities that are now available to you. And that's where this is huge. This is so important. This unattachment comes in. That things can come to you in ways that you didn't even think imaginable. I shared this example on like one of our first podcasts, if not the first podcast episode, where it was the Tony Robbins event, right? I wanted to go to Tony Robbins. I didn't have the money. I literally had like $1 less in my bank account. And I just like, I'm going to be there. And it was the first time I said like, wait a second. Let me not focus on, I need $1,000. How do I make $1,000? Let me just focus on, I'm going to be there. I'm going to get those tickets and I'm going to go. A day or two later, I'm playing tennis with a friend randomly out of the blue. And, in like 2 minutes, she's telling me like, hey, I've got these extra Tony Robbins tickets. Do you want them? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, wait, what? Like I dropped my racket. I'm just like, holy crap, right? So expand that radar screen, expand your sphere of believability, of possibility, and be open to it coming from a way that you didn't even expect. All right. Now let's move on to our final manifesting habit, hoping you'll choose 2 or 3 here to run with. Manifesting habit number 13 is to practice manifesting something really small and rather insignificant. Obviously, the manifestation of it will make it significant for you, but I mean something that you're not attached to, something that if you don't get it, it means you suck or you're a failure, right? And also bringing in something that has nothing to do with money. Like you didn't pay for it. It didn't cost you money. And this is just a habit to begin. Like, here's the way I look at it. It's like if this manifesting thing is like a muscle you build, we don't go in your first day of the gym and try and bench press 350 pounds. You start small and you build the muscle. If you start too big, the lack of believability, the disbelief is high, right? So it doesn't work, and then it just reaffirms the disbelief. So you start really, really small with something that you just forget about almost, like a little toy or like candy or a compliment or, something really small and insignificant. And you practice developing that muscle and also observe it coming in a way that you didn't have to go out and buy it. Mm-hmm. I think that's really, really important. So there you go. We gave you more than enough, right? 13 different habits or practices or tricks that put you through your actions and behaviors into an abundance mindset, an abundance belief system that will continue to perpetuate those experiences of abundance. I think it's so, so, so important. So your job is to pick 2 or 3. You could pick more. Start with a few that are really simple and really like a hell yes for you, and play around and see what happens. And again, what we want to end with here is, the ironic, paradoxical nature of this very episode is that we're talking about how to manifest more money while simultaneously saying it's not about the money, right? And there's this quote that I think is just so profound, just pure wisdom. Money is only important to those who don't have it. I can't tell you how profound I think that is, right? Because I've had the experience of being on both sides of that, where I got into the whole personal development and this whole world because, it's going to help me make more money. And I became obsessed with it. Hopefully not in too much of an unhealthy way, but it was very important to me. Especially when you're in your mid-20s and you're living at home and can't afford rent, and then you go on a date with a girl and she's like, "So where do you live?" And you're like, "With my parents." you're like, "Yeah, my roommates. Oh gosh, I hate my roommates." You mean your mom and dad? Yeah. So it was important, right? And obviously, if we're talking about some of the things we're doing here, like donating and giving away, it's not as important, right? So really, in practicing these habits, what we're ultimately driving at is to have a life of more abundance where what you want and desire comes to you easily and effortlessly without meaning it's taking away from someone else, without meaning there's any guilt on your part. Means we need to soften our grip on this importance we have around money. I get it that our world, our economy, our reality is driven by money. We have to, pay for things. We have to have a job, but then we need a car to get to the job, so we have to make enough money at the job to pay for the car. I mean, I get it. But money is only important to those that don't have it. And what we're ultimately doing is getting you to be, or from the energetic side would be to vibrate at the frequency of already having the money. And so I think that really encourages us to soften our grip on the importance of this a little bit. So ultimately, why then would we do an entire episode on manifesting money if it's, kind of contradicts exactly what we're just saying? Well, here's my reason why. In the doing of these habits and exercises and tricks, there's an opportunity to have fun, to experience and discover the magic of possibility. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Have fun doing these. Let go. Stop taking it so seriously. Don't make this about how dire and urgent everything is. And just have fun and watch what happens. Thank you so much for listening. I'm James Wedmore.
I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
And we'll see you on the next episode. Take care. Are you frustrated that no matter how hard you hustle, no matter how much you get done in a day, you still feel like you have little results to show for it? Do you feel like you're doing everything right, but there's still something missing? Well, what if there was an easier way? What if your business could be fun, effortless, and profitable? Phoebe and I have put together a free audio MP3 for you, compiling the 77 business affirmations for creating success from the inside out. And we want to give it to you absolutely free. This is your chance to rewire your brain for bigger results in your life and your business. To get instant access absolutely free, simply visit 77affirmations.com. That's the number 77affirmations.com.